is muted. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My mic was muted, you all. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Sharita Walden, your co-host of By Any Means. I am so excited to be here today. As before we really get started, I want to go ahead and ask everyone that's joining. I know we still got people hopping in. If you could like and share our podcast today, that would be great. If you could comment now and say, hey, I'm here, that would be awesome too. I'm looking at the comments to see if I see any folks in there. And I'm gonna let some folks get into the room while we wait. While we're waiting, I would like to remind everyone that you can catch us doing a live broadcast of our podcast by any means. We do it bi-monthly. But we have a live screening, a live taping coming up on next Saturday. So a week from this Saturday, which will be May 10th. Doors will open at 5 o'clock. The show will start promptly at 6 p.m. sharp. This will be such a treat. Everyone in that space will be engaged in some really authentic conversations, just like we do on the podcast. You do not have to worry about being seen on camera if you don't want to, because I know that can be a concern sometimes. So I don't want people to, fret and think that they're going to be on camera. Another thing I want to bring up is, so you can get the tickets. We have the flyer up there. We have a link for the tickets that's in the comment section right now, on Facebook and on YouTube. Whether you're streaming on either platform, you can get the links. That link will close soon, so I urge you to get your tickets so that you can be in this space. You do not want to miss this opportunity. This is our first one with many, many more to come. Let's see. Another thing is we have an opportunity for folks to donate. We're a small grassroots organization that practices harm reduction. We have a Save a Life campaign that we kicked off just ahead of our 10-year anniversary this past fall. And we would love for people to continue to support our work. As you see, the government is playing no games with us and snatching money left and right and support left and right. So we really are looking towards our community to help continue to support the efforts of Kentucky Harm Reduction Coalition. $40, you guys, $40 can save one life. We are talking about a naloxone kit with fentanyl test strips and xylazine test strips and information about treatment and recovery and other resources in the community. So if you have it right now, if you are able to commit to $40, we're going to have some other opportunities for donations coming up soon, some challenges that we want to bring to the community, especially if you are interested in just doing something really good that will help many, 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 many folks to come. So again, I want people, if you are joining us, to like and share this stream. Follow us, subscribe. You can also catch us on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook. You can go to our website for donations. All the things, right? All right. So let's get started. Today I am by myself. Henry is traveling back, everybody. He's traveling back from Colombia. Yes, my co-host, my colleague, my friend of over a decade was able to get the opportunity with some of our colleagues and board members to go to the International Harm Reduction Conference in Colombia and actually present about the work that we're doing here. So it's pretty cool. We were able to attend the National Harm Reduction Conference in 2022. So we are so excited that we were able to be present in the space internationally this year in Colombia. So I'm looking forward to Henry sharing when we come back here in 2 weeks about what it was like to be amongst so many other people around the world doing the work that we do here in Louisville, Kentucky. Yes, we are based. If you're watching us and you're across Kentucky lines, we are based right here in Louisville, Kentucky. So yeah, I'm really, really excited. So now all the excitement I have, I'm ready to jump into today's topic and what we are planning to discuss. If you have been following the conversations over the last month, maybe a little over a month, we have really been digging into what it means to show up for community. We have been unpacking the uncomfortable conversation as leaders, uh, you know, talking about how uncomfortable it can be to not center ourselves. So to decenter ourselves and center the focus on the community. And that can sound, well, you're in social services, Sharita. You're in social services, Henry. That's something that you should automatically be doing. Well, we know that. And a lot of us, people that do the work, believe we are doing the good work of being about our community. However, a lot of times we show up and the good work or doing the good deed does not register or come out the way that we expect. So when we started these conversations as leaders, unpacking how we feel, we then opened the floor to some of our guests. And if you saw our most recent taping of this podcast, you heard from people with lived experience about some of the challenges that they experience, right? When going into spaces and seeking help. And we asked for feedback. We asked for feedback on how we're doing it. Are we centering our people for real? Are we really showing up in these spaces as allies, or does it seem like performance? And some of the feedback that we received in Henry and I's last conversation together, we unpacked the discomfort of learning that no, we probably aren't. We probably are not doing what we said we really wanted to do. The intent is not matching the impact. So for this final, and actually we're going to end up having a part two because we had a couple of folks who wanted to be a part of this conversation and were unable. And because we think it's important that people who lead in the community in different lanes speak up to this, we will be doing a part two to this. But today I have a couple of guests who do work in the community, who lead organizations, who lead efforts. And although some of our leaders may have lived experience, what we all recognize as leaders is that we carry a space of privilege. So today, the title, From Ally to Co-Conspirator: Shifting Power, Centering Lived Experience, and Resisting Performative Compliance and Harm Reduction. How do we really, really do that? I mean, what does it truly mean to stand with communities most impacted by harm and not just follow the rules? What does that look like? So, what we're going to do today is dig into some tension between federal compliance and community centered resistance, explore how power can be shifted in real time, and challenge the performative tendencies that show up even in our progressive spaces. This isn't a call out, it is a call in. This isn't an opportunity to jab at people who are doing this really hard work and say what you're not doing. Is saying what can we all do better, right? So I think I'm going to bring my first guest on just a little bit early because they did show up to do testing of the mics early, but I don't like talking to myself, you guys. Like, it could be really uncomfortable. I mean, sometimes I'll talk to myself, but that's when I'm having the meeting of the masterminds, and I guess sometimes it don't pan out well. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring in my first guest, Odell.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey there, Odell. How are you?
Well, busy day today. I'm in Frankfurt today. At
Okay.
my we got a roundtable summit
Okay.
thing this evening, and I just finished setting up for that. So I just stopped over here at my pop's house to make sure I could hop on here and have a
Okay.
nice discussion. So,
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining. So, Odell, can you share in the community with our viewers who you are, what you do, how you show up in the community? Can you share that so people know why is Odell on here?
yeah, for sure. Well,
Okay.
my name's Odell Hager. I am the director of community outreach and public relations for Stillwaters, based out of Lexington, Kentucky. And it's the IOP Recovery and Housing Organization. That's my position, and I working in the treatment field.
Hmm.
Um, and we can say recovery too, because we offer recovery support as well, because there is a difference between what treatment is and what recovery is.
Hmm.
Also, I just recently got the news. It's not official or it's going to be broadcasted yet, but I'm joining back with Vocal Kentucky. Um, and we yeah, we're going to be bringing that into Frankfurt at the Capitol. So,
Yes. Yes. That's dope.
but as far as what we're going to like, if we're talking about harm reduction. My passion is what I do, and we try to do it if not once a week, at least twice or three times a month. We do a lot of street outreach as far as making harm reduction bags, and that can consist of two main things or three main things that are important. That's always in there. That's Narcan, fentanyl test strips, xylazine test strips. But then, depending on the season and what people's needs are, what we put in the bag. So it should be socks, gloves. We always try to put socks and gloves in there, regardless. Ponchos, some coffee packs, Kool-Aid packs, or something. Little and then like some resource information, and we don't go out there with any other purpose as some just trying to just here you might need this bag. All right, awesome. If they want to ask about something, like if they like if we know anywhere that they might be able to go, we'll have a conversation with them. But we don't go out there and try to like, hey, you need to get, because that doesn't work, and that's not what we're going
Right.
out there for. We're going out there to try to give somebody at least a resource or something that where they can stay alive that night. So that's
Right.
pretty much what we do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Odell, for joining us. Can you share with everyone first, before we even dive into the conversation, why did you answer the call to even join this conversation with this topic?
Well, like you said, it's not a jab at anybody in particular or anything like that. These are hard topics a lot of people don't want to talk about, or they just want to push to the back burner. And I've never been one to keep my mouth shut. So, and regardless of who it is, friends, family, whoever, I am in recovery myself. I'm formerly incarcerated myself.
Hmm.
Um, I also, but I got that lived experience. So I just wanted to hop on here and let's just bring it up and talk about it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I got there's a lot of great people out there who do a lot of amazing work. There's also a lot of bad actors out there, and that's with
Hmm.
any type of thing, policy, harm reduction, or treatment. So we gotta talk about it. And I won't use a platform on any social media or anything like that to call anybody out by specific names or organizations, because
Right.
I don't like doing that. But uh, we just have a nice, genuine conversation now.
Right. And it doesn't help, right? It doesn't
Right. It
help
does.
it's the distraction if I start to point fingers at
Hmm.
organizations and at people, and now we can't get to the solution, right?
Right.
Exactly.
But the
Um,
main goal is trying to if you're not in this work and you're thinking about it, if anything, I just like people like with the work that we all do, like just try to inspire. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? To hop in and join. You know.
Well, I do want to go into a question because I do know you were part of the audience when we had folks with lived experience on our show talking about how people show up and what are the needs of our community. So I want to ask you this question, as someone um, who is in a position of leadership, and you do have position of privilege and power. How do you sit with the discomfort that comes from hearing raw truths from people with lived experience? I know that were you were in those comments and you were actively engaging in the conversation, and not to just say, "Oh, this specific person said this specific thing," but how do you sit with what you were hearing?
Well, hmm, how I sit with it, I try to mind my language here. I when I
It's
hear
okay.
like yeah, when I hear like certain things happening, it really like pisses me off and upsets me a lot, you know. But like at the same
Hmm.
time, I take that energy for inspiration to try to make change and stuff like that. Because specifically, I think on one podcast that you all were talking about, we were talking about how if you want to be raw truth about all of it, when they brought back the overdose rates when they dropped in Kentucky, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But then they had an increase in the black and brown community. But so to
Hmm.
me, it's like, how are you saying there's a drop if there's an increase?
Yeah.
Me and the reason why, and then I'm leading up to my point here is that we do a lot of there's a lot of good people doing a lot of work with harm reduction, a lot of education, and providing a lot of resources. But at the same time, it's also communities that like people don't want to go into certain communities to do that. Um, Specifically black and brown communities, and
Hmm.
or they just don't feel comfortable doing it, but they don't know who to reach out to go about doing it, right?
Right. Right.
But and I know that like, and I say this 100% because I got to talk this all the time, and I don't care who likes it or don't. But I know that I'm in this country, I'm a white male, straight male, and I do have a privilege. But
Hmm.
like, and I realize that that privilege that I have is I can use that to help what needs to be helped, right?
Right.
But the point, the thing is like you got to start acknowledging everyone else that are like me. You got to acknowledge that we have that.
And
Um,
I appreciate you saying that. And I think what it brings up for me is one of our guests. I've been following their platform, their social media platforms, and I didn't get permission to say who they were. And if they jump into the chat and say it was me, that's great. But just to honor the anonymity that comes with us
mhm,
sharing on our private platforms is the frustration in the recovery community. With folks who are putting this very big gap between what recovery looks like.
yeah.
It breaks my heart that recovery, in and of itself, what AA and NA and all the A's bring, the 12-step programs, that what they bring to the community is community. Yet, when you step into the community and seek support from your community, you're still being pulled apart because your recovery doesn't look like someone else's. And I don't know how that sits with you, seeing those conversations happening, being someone who is advocating for the both and, right? Harm
Mhm.
reduction is both and, but seeing people feel harmed, that they don't feel like they're welcomed. It breaks my heart. But from someone who lives a life in an active community program and who may have participated in those, how does that make you feel to hear and see folks' response to that?
So first, let me. I'm going to say that yeah, I'm in recovery. AA saved my life, right? You know, and
Right.
but I'm just saying that for this reason though. Um,
Excuse me.
there's a when people like me and we're in active use, active drug use, or active alcoholism, and there's a difference between drug use and drug abuse. So let's say abuse, right? And we're
Hmm.
chaotic. People like me who were unmanageable and chaotic. we faced so much judgment then, all right? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of judgment, and lost a lot of and burned a lot of bridges. And then we find recovery. And the thing that sets that I found when I was first in, because I almost started going down that road of like, no, it's this way. If you don't do it this way, you know. And I'm thankful that I had a great sponsor, man. He
Mm-hmm.
in the very beginning, he you know, we started talking about that. So the way it sits with me is it's yes, I get upset about it. I understand it because there's lack of education. Because you're not going to like I haven't seen there's so much judgment in recovery community than it is with people who aren't an addict or an alcoholic when they judge us who are. There's more judgment
Mm-hmm.
in that recovery community. Not everyone, but I mean, you'll see it all the time, like on social medias and people putting out these harmful posts like, you're not sober if you do this, or you're not clean if you don't do that.
Right.
And my thing is who the hell are you? You know what I mean?
Right.
Just because not one thing works for everybody. Um, I practice complete absence. That's my thing, but that's the only thing that would work for me. I tried the other ones and it didn't work for me. But I've seen so many people live very amazing, successful lives when they do the recovery that they do. That could be
Right.
Suboxone, methadone. I've seen people like thankfully that survived that did heroin, like because my thing was heroin. When we did heroin, we both quit. They can still go have a beer or two on the weekends. You know what I mean? And they're
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's recovery to them. You know, and then I know people who do the marijuana maintenance. That's recovery to
Mm-hmm.
them. And I've seen data on the West Coast and everything that it's been a little bit more successful than the Suboxone or methadone when they use that. But my
Mm-hmm.
point is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what someone else is doing for their recovery because it's not your business. You know what I mean? As long as people are showing up and helping others in the community, it doesn't matter how they recover. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah, and in harm reduction, the definition of recovery is any positive change.
yeah.
So I definitely agree and center that. I guess one thing I do, I want to ask as we're talking about this, and there's a question. I kind of know the answer, but I guess this is the platform for you to
Mhm.
share how you do it. Um, as we look at what's happening on the ground level with policies that are lining up again. So we know our community needs us in a way to be that voice. Um, and we know that policies and that funds are being threatened. Um, and these policies are causing certain players in this group to change. They're getting compliant. They're like, hey, if you tell me to walk right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, they going right foot, left foot. Uh, I'm wondering, how are you actively resisting the urge to default to compliance like you? Because I see you out in the community. I see, you've taken some really bold steps. I hope you get to share on here, walking away from stuff. But I want people to hear what some real allies are doing here. Because the question, what does true allyship look like beyond policy compliance? Well, Odell's on this. And so I want that Odell to share what steps he really has taken to resist the urge to just fall in line. This is going to be big. So for all you folks that look like Odell, I need y'all to hold on to your seats because this is a huge challenge of where you willing to go. And I'm going to shut up and let Odell answer.
Well, thanks for putting me on that hot spot. So, true allyship, what does that look like beyond policy compliance? First, let me say that there are some good people that are working for, like, trying to do policy and doing the right thing for people like us, right? Um, I've worked with them, I know them, but at the same time, I've also worked for a lot of people and worked with them on the policy level that have hidden agendas. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's not so much that they're just ready to fall in line on compliance. Maybe that was their agenda the whole time. That's how I look at it. But
Wow.
you also have some. Again, like I said, that's not everybody. There's a difference. Like I work with a lot of good people or organizations, but then there are the other ones. Uh, for example, We have organizations that'll go in and speak for people on our behalf at the Capitol and on lobbying level. But how come like majority of us aren't being invited to that table? How come
Mm,
there hasn't been a lot of training for a lot of people who'd like to go speak for people in our situations at that table? Um, and to be honest with you, when you know that you're doing the right thing, people know, like people see that you're doing the right thing or what you believe is right. Let's just say that what you believe is the right thing, okay?
mm-hmm,
Because some people aren't going to think that what you're doing is right or they know it's right and they just want to go the other way. You have to step away from certain uh, previous allies who you thought were allies. You have to make those statements because that for me that is. I make my statements known because I want people to know where that line in the sand is drawn for me. Um,
mm,
if you are only going in there to like lobby and do policy for whatever thing you got going on that we had no input on at all, but yet you say you represent us, then that's when I'm going to step back and I'll let it be known. And then I'll also let other people know, hey, this is what's going on. If you want to be a part of it, let's start working. There was an organization that was coming in Kentucky that I happened to join at first and everything. Then I found out certain people who they might have hired and everything else. I'm not a fan of. It's not that I'm not a fan of. I just don't. Integrity means more to me than anything else, and I stepped straight down immediately. As soon as I got an email that these people were being hired, I sent an email straight to them and said, "This is my resignation letter." I don't
ooh.
like. Yeah. I just don't.
Whoa, can we just pause on that real quick, Odell?
Yeah.
Integrity.
Yes.
Integrity, y'all, will it's a test because you heard what Odell just said. He had to walk away. He chose, not had to. He chose to walk away because risking integrity was risking it all. I told y'all before. I met people have told me, "Man, Sheree, you risk it all," and it made it sound like I'm risking funds. All money ain't good money, right?
Mm.
This is the
No.
thing. You can sell your soul down the river and never get that back.
Right.
I want people to really hear what you put on the line. Like, I don't think people understand how resistance and revolutionary work really looks. And walking this thing means you could sacrifice a paycheck coming your way. I need people to hear that. That's a huge answer to how do I resist the urge to just fall in line. I don't think people understand that, Odell. I don't think people really want to sit with how heavy that decision can is for you. Like,
Right.
also not for you to just throw it away, but that's a decision, right?
Yeah. And I mean, and that's and I know a few people who do the same thing. You know what I mean? Especially people that I know that actually do, or if they say they're in recovery, then like, because I'm going to bring that up. That was something that recovery brought and taught me was that
Mm.
you say what you mean and you mean what you say, and if there's certain things going on and that you know is wrong, then you step the fuck away from it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, when we go back to these policies and all this, and the people who lobby, like I said, we have some good friends and good allies who are there, and they do help us. I'm not going to mention no names for the good ones or the bad ones. I'm just saying in general. You know,
I respect it.
yeah. But some of them might be watching, and they know who I'm talking about when I say the good ones, and they know who I'm talking about when I
Mm-hmm.
say the bad ones. But I sometimes, like especially right now, you're going to see who is really in your corner, or not just your corner, but in general as a community as a whole, especially with what's going on in this administration. Because
Yeah.
it's not a Republican or Democrat thing anymore. You know what I mean? And it's like we can say that, but what's one side and the other side doing? To me, they're all cowards because
Yeah.
nobody is taking the step up to even try to fight for us. They
Yeah.
I know we got a lot saying that they already do town halls and everything else, but what are the actual, like I'm hearing a lot, but what are the actual steps and stuff that people are taking? you know. And if it's not for you, then step down like the rest of us have to sometimes. You know what I mean? And then let's get a good movement going.
Yeah, I totally, that resonates with me a lot. If you're, it can be very cowardly. I always tell people when they speak up, and I always say, you know, that took a lot of courage.
Hmm.
It's bravery. The other side of that is that we in positions of power need to own when we take a back seat and we choose the coward role. Having folks say, I'm not going to speak up, I'm just going to slide under, understanding that, hey, well, you've chosen that route, but let's not negate that that is cowardly,
Hmm.
right? And I think that that may step on some toes of folks. But I think it's a truth that we need to hear because, like I keep telling everyone, while our governor files the lawsuits and while we push back on policies, people are dying. So at the same time that we're saying that we're going to go speak and march and talk, understand that lives are being lost in the midst of that.
Hmm.
And do I get to go to a family and say, I'm sorry, we're just waiting on the lawsuit so that we can use the language that we've been using to save these uh, for these opportunities to save lives? I don't get to do that. I don't think a family member wants to hear me say, because I have to comply. Um, I'm sorry about your loss.
No.
It doesn't work like that. Um,
Uh,
yeah. So go
and
ahead
I,
if you were
and I,
about to say something.
yeah, I was gonna say like now compliance, like as far as now, I will have to say this. When it comes to actual treatment in the facilities or centers or anything like that, we have to be compliant with that. You know what I mean? Because that's what's going to keep our people going in and getting help. And like, and but as far as policy goes, when we're doing our harm reduction thing, and like you just said, well, I ain't waiting on no court order, and I'm not waiting on no lawsuit and everything else. We're going to keep going out in the streets and doing what we're doing. We're going to keep speaking up
Right.
the way we need to speak up. Our invitations out there for anybody. You know, you want
I
to come out,
agree.
you want to come out here and help start doing the work. Everybody, and you know, there's different roles for everybody too. You got to find where you fit in for it, and then let's get moving.
Okay.
Not everybody's meant to go and speak to a senator. Sometimes, you know what I mean.
Exactly.
Not
Exactly.
everybody's meant to go and be on speaking platforms. I don't like it, but you all ask me sometimes, so I come and do it. You know.
Right.
Uh, um, but the thing is that if you have it in your heart to do something, let's do it. You know, there's
Yeah.
like the days of just let's post about it and talking about it and everything else. That's just like it's not helping right now. It's it's helping spread knowledge, but like I'm not like let's start making some actual action.
So I will say this, that question, the way that I respond to resisting the urge to default to compliance. Our state likes to tout and share that we have so many treatment beds available. We have so many treatment programs. And what I believe is happening is the reason why people are starting to shift and want to take funding away, because that's what it is, taking funding away from harm reduction, which is a part of the ecosystem of recovery, um, is because we have all these treatment opportunities. So my thing becomes this when we're going to talk about compliance, because that's something that I did do and monitor when overseeing treatment programs, is how many of your participants and clients are from underserved populations, though? How many of those beds actually hold people that look like me or from the LGBTQ community or the trans community of color? How many people are actively engaged in programs where you can move them into a residential bed? Because if you're talking about compliance, well, I need to see that the underserved populations that are dying at the highest rate are actually getting admitted into these programs, because that's not compliant. It's not meeting the need. So when the government and the state says we got so much of this and they don't tell me how they're going to engage, I'm like, see, that's where harm reduction is,
Hmm.
because we meet people where they're at to help them get to that point.
Hmm.
Like, you can't take us out the picture. We lose funding, people will start to die. And guess what? Those numbers in the white community that continue to decline in overdose fatalities will start to go up again. And the truth of it is, maybe we'll start to get money back because white people will start dying again at a high rate. And that's a very hard truth. And what pisses me off the most is that folks who are in recovery today that are actively engaging in moving these policies forward and advocating for recovery services have actually utilized harm reduction resources. And that is astonishing when I don't see a crowd of folks backing myself or our program. Now that's where I go, whoa, whoa, you needed these programs.
And that's the thing. The harm reduction, those like in a lot of time, and it is a vital resource for people getting into treatment or people just finding some type of. Not everybody needs to go to treatment, just some type of
No.
recovery. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It is a harm reduction is a huge resource, one of the major ones for that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not just on the streets; they have harm reduction people or specialists going in the jails and prisons, but
There you go.
they don't like saying the word harm reduction or saying anything else because of the stigma that they have for it, right? But
Exactly.
and that's a lack of education on their part. It's just like, all right, I'm not going to eat that hot dog because it's such and such, but knowing that that hot dog is probably different than what they're known, or I'm just that's stupid, but you know what I mean. Um, but let's talk about treatment centers and beds and how many beds per people in the state, because I've always said this myself. Because former incarcerated as well as being in treatment, and um, now we have a lot of people that don't go out into the black and brown communities. That's just fact. It doesn't really happen that much. I do know a lot of good, a lot of good places. I know a lot of bad places. I do know a lot of good places that will accept anybody,
Mm-hmm.
LGBTQ, black and brown communities, people who don't speak English as their first language. I do know that, but the problem is getting that information to them, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then let's talk about judicial systems then, because in Kentucky we've done huge strides as far as getting people into treatment instead of having them incarcerated. But who are they letting go to treatment and not
Mm.
incarcerating? So if you look at the data on how many on if you want to look at race or ethnicity as far as treatment beds go, and then you look at who's most populated in the prison systems.
Mm.
I know for a fact myself is when I was going through court, I've been to court, jail, prisons, institutions, and everything else. I was afforded so many opportunities by a judge,
Mm-hmm.
so many, right? And I always say this one specific time because this is the thing that always stuck out to me before I even got into this field or got into harm reduction and everything else. Um, I had a friend of mine who we were locked up together. No, we weren't co-defendants or anything else. We just happened to be locked up at the same time, and we both had similar backgrounds. We both had similar charges. And here's the thing: I was offered to go to long-term treatment. He went straight to prison. No
Mm.
really difference between our charges or anything else. Maybe a point five whatever on a scale or something, right? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But the point I'm making is like that's how a lot of our facilities and stuff in the state of Kentucky are getting patients and stuff is because of Department of Corrections. But yet, who are they really helping the most? And
Mm.
why isn't that being spoke about the most? When it comes to getting people into all these beds that we have all over the state, and we have them all over, like
We do.
each corner and in the center and everything else. And another reason why they're pulling funding is because then you have these bad actors, and this is where the good people that we have that are in policy and they do all like they're doing all this. We have these people that are having these beds or they open up these recovering housing or whatever, and all they're doing is draining the Medicare and not offering no services, but nobody speaks up about them, not publicly anyway.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so when they start pulling that funding from that, then that's pulling the funding from everything else because well they're doing all this Medicaid fraud and stuff like that. We need to start pulling the funding here, and anybody. So I make a suggestion right now: if anybody that are doing these so-called whatever IOP housing there or fake recovery housing, or saying they're offering these services and everything else that they're not doing, or they're barely scraping by, report it immediately, because the more you speak out and you report all this, the better it's going to be to get funding back. The better it's going to be to fund not just the recovery aspect of it, but the harm reduction aspect of it. Because
Mm-hmm.
right now, because of a lot of these bad actors and everything else, that's making people say, "Well, this isn't helping. They're just taking money." You know.
Mm. Well, I appreciate you saying that. And as we get ready to close out your portion, I loved
Oh
having you
yeah.
on here,
Yeah.
Odell. I wanna ask you this for our people that are watching.
Absolutely.
Um, I'm reframing the question, Ryan, so you don't have to put it up there because I'm reframing it because Odell added a whole lot. But because you're doing the work of co-conspirator, being a co-conspirator. You're doing the work of being an accomplice. Um, this platform and the way that we are having conversations is also to inspire people to have that paradigm shift.
Mhm.
We're hoping that people join these podcasts and feel inspired to have a shift in the way that they approach this work and the way that they think, and bit by bit, right? It takes time. It's not a microwave, it's an oven. So what would you share to someone who's sitting with what you just shared? And a lot of it was not easy to hear. And some people may feel, well, as a believer, convicted is what I feel when I hear some truths, some hard truths. But some people may feel accountable and feel like they felt it in their chest. They felt an attack on something that they're doing. What can you recommend that could be a step? And I'm not asking people to take small steps because we have a lot on the line right now. Harm reduction can look very different next year, and to the point where there's some non existent programs or non existent agencies like ours. What can a person do right now to take a step to evolve from being a performative ally to an active, action oriented co conspirator? Someone who's not been actively doing that, who's been kind of falling in line and being compliant because of fear. Uh, what would you recommend that to be their first step?
Remember where you come from and don't hit them streets first. That's just me. That's what I'm gonna say. If you were anything like me and everything else, you know where you came from, and you need to be constantly reminded of that. Because I know a lot of people, like, they started out doing great work, and then all of a sudden they get too comfortable. They get too comfortable being a yes man, and too comfortable. And sometimes it might be a thing where they're not realizing that's what's happening. So let's take a step back. Let's go back to basics. Where'd you come from? Uh, what's a passion of yours that you probably let burn out? Let's go to the people. Let's go do some community discussion. Let's go out there and
Mm-hmm.
find the needs of what people need, and see what's going on instead of what your agenda is. And
Mm,
that's not going to work for everybody, because some people are just stuck in their ways when it comes to, like, what am I going to benefit from it? You know what I mean? And
mm,
not how I'm going to be a contributor in the service of others. So
mm,
I'm like, I don't really have a lot to say on that, except let's go hit the streets again. You know what I mean? You don't need me. You don't need anybody else. You know where to go. You know.
wow. Man, Odell, it has been a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you.
Um, I really do love when we get a chance to connect, and we will be connecting more. In fact, we're going to connect shortly
Hmm.
later this afternoon to do some revolutionary work, you guys, because that's what it's about. All right. Safe
Th-
travels while you're on the road.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
No problem. No problem. You guys, what do you say? Remember where you come from and hit them streets first. Sit with that. Remember where you come from and hit them streets first. It's not magic, right? It's not something that um, you have to figure it out. It's not chemistry. Which one did I not like? I didn't take physics because I didn't like it. So it's not physics. It's actually pretty simple for my people in the rooms at AANA. What was the saying? Keep it simple. Oh, they kept that shit real simple, y'all. Like he said, remember where you come from and hit them streets first. Sometimes we forget. We forget. I know in my community back home, we're like, remember where you come from, Joe? Like that's how we talk to each other. Don't forget where you come from. That's the way to humble ourselves. And I'm saying ourselves because there are times that I have to remind myself of where I come from. When I started this work, you all, I started in substance use as an EMT case aide, emergency medical technician case aide. Nope, I'm not going to unpack the story of how I got to become an emergency medical technician. Some of my folks who are in my circles know that story. Just know that I don't like blood. That's one indicator. But I was an EMT case aide, and what it looks like in today's world of treatment and recovery is I was a tech. And I appreciate starting off as a tech in this work because the higher I've risen, moving from a tech to a clinician, then moving into management positions, then director positions, that tech life humbles me every day. Anytime I want to make a decision, I have to go back. Anytime I'm ready to bring in disciplinary actions to staff members who are doing the groundwork, I go back to where I was as a tech. I never want to forget where I came from. In fact, as I moved through my career as a clinician, my line to a lot of my colleagues who were old school clinicians when I started was, I don't ever want to be in them people. And the them people were managers and directors. I never wanted to be them because I've always been impacted negatively by managers and leaders who forgot. That's really what it was. They forgot. And what I learned through my experience of being under those leaders who are my teachers as well is the things that I didn't want to become. So when Odell said that, I hurried up and wrote down his quote, remember where you come from and hit them streets first. Um, the questions Odell asked, get back to the basic, get back to the basic. What's the basics? What's your passion? What's your why? And if you've been following our podcast, you will remember Harry and I's last conversation where we really talked about exploring your why. Excuse me, burnout is a real thing. I'm going to say this. Burnout is not an excuse, though, for us to move into a performative space. It's not an excuse. It's not an excuse to say that I'm burnt out, which is why I've lost my empathy to understand the importance and value of the work that people are doing in certain spaces. Like, we don't get to do that. This sounded more like a challenge. And what's cool about it is a challenge from someone who has lived experience, who is in a position, not just in a community as far as the organization leadership, but doing the groundwork as a leader. And if we had a lot more time, I think Odell would have shared more, and we would probably bring Odell back again. I don't know about you all, but I really felt good about listening to Odell's responses and reflections, and really getting excited for our next and our final guest as we prepare. But before we do that, I want you to, again, like, share, and comment about this podcast. Tell us what you think so far. Share what's resonating with you. If you're driving, please do not text and drive because I do not want to know someone harm themselves or others while trying to respond to this. So don't do that. But if you are sitting, eating your lunch, if you're just listening, I would love to hear what your feedback is. And, if that challenge is something you want to commit to, push like or heart on Facebook. You can heart also on YouTube, but it would be cool to know that some of this is resonating with you as well. Again, want to plug our in-person live podcast. Y'all, we are past, uh, we're closer to getting to about 20 folks in this space. So I need you all to go get these tickets because I think we're going to end up closing this link down pretty soon. My team is going to let me know how many more days and hours we got to keep this link open. But I promise you, if you think the virtual setting gets hot, gets spicy, can you imagine what that in person podcast is going to feel like and look like? I really don't think you understand or you are even prepared for what we have. And it's our first one. It's a treat because we're going to learn from you all what you want to see and if you want to see more of this. So you're going to have more input. So yes, on Saturday, May 10th, 5 o'clock, the doors will open at our Health and Wellness Lounge, 721 South Brook. And 6 o'clock showtime. We need you to have tickets because we want to make sure that we have enough drinks and eats for the folks that are there. And again, we only have so many we can fit in there. So we're getting close to that number and I'm excited. All right. While we prepare for our next guest, who is a lovely colleague of mine in this work, uh, I'm going to be charging my laptop because my laptop looked like it's about to die. I don't want Ryan to get mad at me. I did have it charged up, Ryan. I don't know what's going on. But Leanne, can you bring Leanne on so I could be charging my laptop?
Hello, hello.
How you doing, Leanne?
It's funny. When we were getting together earlier, my laptop was dying, and I was scrambling for my laptop cord.
Listen, I know mine was actually, let's see. Can y'all still hear me? Because I kind of moved my little mic thing. Okay, cool. All right, y'all. I didn't die. I didn't get in trouble. Um, but yeah, it was fine. But I think because I'm streaming this and I got my mic, my everything plugged into it is sucking the juice out
Mm-hmm.
like quick. So, all right, Leanne, I'm so happy that you could be on. Okay, real quick, you guys. I asked my peeps last minute, yes, yesterday, to join me, and they
That's
love
the
me.
way I roll, really. You want to do this?
Man,
Yeah,
I'm so glad. Leanne, can you please share with our audience who you are, what you do, in the community, what you lead? Give us an intro, Leanne.
sure. I'm Leanne Yost. I'm the director over at Choose Well Communities. We're a small organization that works with families with young children who are navigating sobriety. We work with them for about 3 years, help them really also navigate life, get into safe, affordable housing, and live life on life's terms, for lack of a better word. We accompany them. We cherish them. I want to start with a quote that
Mm.
Father Greg Boyle says: "Systems change when people change, and people change when they're cherished." And yeah, it
I'm
gives me goosebumps every time I say it because everybody, we all want the same things. We all want to be
mm,
loved. We all want to be rich. But
that part.
the love and compassion part, I feel like it's getting a little bit thinner and thinner these days.
Mm.
And so we work towards a compassionate community no matter what. I'm also
Yes, you do.
a musician, and I'm
Say
also
that.
in
Say
recovery.
that again. Wait a minute. Say that again, Leanne. You're what?
I'm a musician, and I'm also in recovery.
Whoop.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Musician, you got to tell us what you play.
I play guitar and sing. I had a midlife crisis at 30. I was pregnant and I was in a band and I couldn't perform because no one wants to see a, pregnant singer in a bar. So I learned to play guitar while I was pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah, I started writing songs. I'm on a label here in town, and I write about life. A lot of my songs are sad, but they're there. They are.
Wait a minute, because a lot of life right now is sad. If
Yeah,
truth be told, you
yeah.
know. Well, Leanne, what what made you say yes? Outside of it being me, what made you
Well,
what made you say yes to being on today?
it's 50% you, 50%. The universe reaches out to me in different ways, and I like saying yes when the opportunity presents itself. And the more I learn and just experience what harm reduction can be and is really,
Mhm.
you know, I want to do whatever I can in order to destigmatize all of this because,
Mm.
I mean, we're all just humans. We're all people. Like I said, we want the same things. People doing hard drugs aren't sitting around having a good time. There's something wrong.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
understand why people don't get that.
yeah. It can be frustrating. I think you guys. So the organization that Leanne is leading is an organization I'm very familiar with, and what I love about having Leanne on today is there isn't a very specific criteria for this program because I think people listen to me and they're like, they think I will push against, well, Choose Well or another organization in our community that is very much abstinence based. And I always say it's a buffet.
Hmm.
So this gives me the opportunity, honestly, to highlight the collaborative nature of the work that we do. Having you on. So, Leanne, I want to thank you for joining this conversation because it's going to help bridge another gap of where I believe people are not seeing the both and. So, I want to start out with you. You weren't a part of the previous conversations, and what we did is we had people with lived experiences. From living with HIV/AIDS, from living as a Black trans woman, living as a person with substance use, chaotic substance use, or dependency issues, and talking about the realities of whether the work that we do is really centering their issues. And what we learned from people is that it's not necessarily hitting the mark, that we are not truly seeing them. Uh, and so I know you didn't get to be a part of that conversation. But I think my question for you is as you think about the conversations we've had, and when I talk about collaboration, knowing there are people who are not ready for Choose Well's program, knowing there is a space where harm reduction can fit, what internal work do you think is still required for people to stand in true solidarity? Like for you to lean in and say, I wasn't quite sure about harm reduction. I want to learn more. What kind of internal work does a person need to do to stand in solidarity and not saviorism?
Yeah, I fell into
All
the
right.
I fell into those categories. I didn't even know what saviorism was until I heard about it, and I was like, "Oh shit, I have been doing this." And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until I heard someone else define it, I was open enough to realize that that's what I was doing. I will say that
Mm.
I've done a ton of self care and therapy and unlearning. I've had to unlearn so many things growing up in the South as a young, privileged white girl
Mm-hmm.
and fallen in. I listened very intently to your first half, and I'm still unlearning.
Mm.
Um, some of the things that were discussed, I really truly admire Odell and what he is able to admit out loud
Mm.
is super powerful for people like me, even. It takes an average 6 to 7 times of people to get in true recovery. And like you said, whether it's abstinence based or anything else, I think it is a true realization that people are who they are and they're not going to be like you. They're not going to be like me. They're going to be like them.
Mm-hmm.
It takes them their way in order to recover. And it
Mm-hmm.
could be AA, it could be NA, but you have to keep yourself open to what works for them because
Mm-hmm.
you don't ever know anybody's trauma. They could tell you some of it, they could tell you none of it, they could tell you all of it, and you still don't know what they've been. You know what you have been through, but you'll never know what other people have been through because everything is relative.
Mm.
I really, really want to implore people who look like me to really take a look at themselves, what they've been doing, what they think. Like, even give you an example. I love Facebook and I love being social, but there are some things I should probably quit posting. I mean, I've done this. Look, it's almost like look what I did, and I don't mean to be that way, but
Mm.
it can come across that way,
Wow.
and I need to realize that.
Wow. Well,
So
thank you for that. I mean, that's huge, Leanne. That's huge to sit back and admit that there are some things and taking a look. What I'm hearing is that internal look is really owning it and being honest with yourself.
yeah, yeah, it's this is important work, and you and I talked about a young lady who didn't quite meet our requirements to get in to choose well at one time, who had a really bad situation happen, and I see the strengths of harm reduction as really helping people who might fall through the cracks.
Yes.
Um, you know, People like to say, "Oh, call this person or try this or do this." I mean, whatever happened to a warm handoff? You know, we don't do enough of that. I think people are strapped for time. There's so
Yeah.
much stigma. The what about meism, uh,
Mm.
different things of that nature.
Well, yeah, you brought up some really
Cool.
no, you did, and you brought up some really powerful points. I think I sit with I sit with exactly what you're talking about, and I think sometimes I get frustrated because I think because I work so hard that I see a lot of things as excuses because I'm like like, and we've had this conversation. We both strapped for time. We both we don't have enough space to really keep doing, and then we keep going. And I'm gonna be honest, even watching people celebrate Derby right now,
Yeah.
um, watching people, one of my friends in this work, lose their job and seeing colleagues out celebrating horses. And I'm like, see, that's the difference between us. We're not the same because I don't see how I can show up in these spaces and truly and pretend. I saw a post where someone said, you know, we have to start realizing that people aren't faking depression, they're faking happiness.
Yes. That
And
I
I'm
think I saw that same thing, and that really hit hard for me. Uh, it really hits the fake it till you make it. Like that's about the only thing that was true that
yes.
my parents told me growing up.
And what I tell people is that excuse me, I struggle with that. I struggle with the faking of celebration with a city that just the two universities are two of the largest universities here canceled graduations for marginalized communities, the canceling of the LGBTQIA plus uh, ceremonies that they've been doing over years. It's hard to celebrate when I'm watching a family struggle whose child was picked up on his spring break uh, through ICE. And this is a child who was taken away without their parents. I struggle with agencies having to close their departments and doors because of funding to sit up and say, okay, I'm going to go celebrate. And I struggle with seeing our sport being the abuse and captivity of animals that if they don't do well or when they're done, they get put down. Like I don't see the celebration, so I struggle with it because because I feel like I'm a part of the community, and that was a conversation that Henry and I had previously about how we continue to show up, right, and how we continue to do this work in a way that's not performative or saviorism and in solidarity. Now, I have a question for you, though. As I was listening to you, um, there is, I feel like Odell shared on the step a person needs to take to evolve to get to that point. I think a description of a time would be good from coming from you because you are an executive director, because you are in a leadership position. Can you name a time when you shifted power, like be it funding, decision making, or visibility towards someone with lived experience? Being a person with lived experience, sometimes it can be difficult to shift out because you also have lived experience. But I'm wondering if an example to our audience would be helpful of ways you can. When was a time where you were able to shift your power to someone else, in whatever capacity that looked like?
So I try to do this as much as possible. And as a leader, I don't feel like you can lead without doing the
Mm.
groundwork. And I'm talking about answering the phone,
Mm.
filing, all of it. You can't expect people to do that if you don't do it yourself. Anytime I go anywhere with Choose Well communities, I try to take a participant with me. And I don't care if I'm meeting the governor or whoever. And, I'll say a few words, but then I introduce them. And I got to be honest, I used to cringe because you don't ever know what's going to come out of their mouth. And I don't
Mhm.
anymore
Mm.
because that's their gift
Mm.
and that's what they're teaching whoever I'm introducing them to.
Mm.
Um, I call every time I push people in a loving way to be uncomfortable and stand in a room with people that they thought that they would never stand in a room with and be honored. Um, if I'm ever in an interview and there's a participant with me and somebody asks me a question, I will look at the participant and say, "What do you think?"
Mm.
Try to do that as much as possible. Um, if grants come my way, I try not to be so, ooh, I'm not going to tell anybody about this grant because they'll get it and I might not. Different things like that. I believe strongly that we are all stronger together than we are single. And again, I never have understood how people don't get that. I just don't.
I know. I
But
know. It
yeah,
can seem like it makes sense, right?
yeah, it just, because, and the same guy who said the systems change quote also said if you're experiencing burnout, then you're making it about you.
Ooh.
Yeah. And that hit me real hard. And I
I like that.
sat on that for so long because I do get burnout. And that's when you're not doing your self care.
Mm,
If you need to step back and remember why you're doing this, it's not about you, it's about who you're with and who you're helping and who you're sitting with.
mm,
Are you sitting beside them or are you standing in front of them? Um, you know, are you listening before you ask a question? Just little things. I've had people come back to me and say, I can't give a specific example, but when you did that, you really made me feel important. And at the time they were like, I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it. And then they did it and they felt so much better. But I've had that door opened for me a couple of times, and just about every time, I got to be honest with you, it has been a black person that has helped me.
wow. Wow. I mean, you just said so much. I was writing as you were talking. Uh and I'm gonna unpack it.
Yeah,
Before I unpack these last two quotes of you, I think it's important for people to understand a process that you did. Although it was a cringe moment, and I appreciate you sharing that because as a leader, I've experienced that, right? I would say, I want someone to speak, and then I'm ready to fix, manage, and control everything that they say. So I appreciate you saying that because that is a real thing. The question is, how did you have to challenge yourself to get through that, to allow that moment to happen for a participant or a client to speak up when you felt that cringe? What did you have to do in that moment?
this is where performing and being a musician really helps me, because I know people are looking.
Mm,
And you're gonna have to get through this. It's almost like sitting with an uncomfortable feeling that makes you want to use.
mm,
And because you get super uncomfortable and something wants to come out of your mouth, like you said, just to fix it. But if you can sit with the feeling, 9 times out of 10, in about 10 seconds, it's over. And nothing happened. It
mm,
wasn't a big deal. If anything,
mm,
everyone learned something from it, you know?
mm,
And I just really amazed about the times I have preconceived conception of something and I'm wrong.
mm.
So I'm starting to not have those anymore. But again,
Wow.
it's such a learning experience, and I have to be open to be like, girl, replay that. Do that again. That was terrible. Go apologize. Whatever it is. Um, I'm really just trying to be intentional now with my time, my space, my efforts, my accountability, to myself, really. And I really enjoyed what you all talked about earlier about AA and NA, and A just like Odell, AA saved my life. The thing that I take away from AA is I had a real problem with the whole religion God thing. I
Mm-hmm.
was not gonna. Unfortunately, I was abused in a church, so there was no way I was going to go with God. But what I have learned to do is take what you need and leave the rest, because not
Mm,
everybody is going to inhale all of the stuff. And if you don't recover like this, I don't believe that. I believe everyone does recover on their own. But I do think that having the groundwork to do things in a specific order really helps.
mm.
And I do think that that kind of guideline used in a way that is not punitive
Yeah.
will really work. And radical compassion,
Mm-hmm.
radical um, unskilled behavior is the result of an unmet need.
Mm.
I learned that as well from one of my people that I truly admire. So every time I see somebody acting out or whatever it is, they need something that is missing that they need. And sometimes it's a hug.
Right. Right. Um, that was so beautiful. You have like all these nuggets that are, I'm very hopeful that our audience really can take with them, and start some change, some momentum, some movement. Um, as we head closer to our wrapping up of this segment, and Leanne, it looks like you'll be coming back to for a follow up discussion, because I think we're on to something here. You shared some really clear like steps, some really clear reflective quotes that people really would benefit from sitting with. Like, if you're experiencing burnout, then you're making it about you. Are you standing beside them or in front of them? I guess as I'm thinking about what would you like to share? Being a new guest, being new now in this space because you weren't able to like be a part of previous dialogue in the chat. What would be something that you would want to walk away feeling like, you know what, I feel complete, after sharing space on this podcast? Like, I really made an impact when it comes to the title, Shifting Power and Resisting Performative Compliance. What would you want to walk away with?
First of all, I feel very comfortable in this space, even though I can't see all of the people that are watching us. I'm still comfortable. But you know, I think people who look like me are still even learning what performative even means.
Mm,
And so, what I'm taking away from this is always be open and willing to learn. And even if you think you're doing it right, you still might have something that you could do. I don't want to say everything has to be better, 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 better. I just mean it needs to be more inclusive and just welcoming.
mm-hmm,
I hate thinking of humans like cattle just being shoved into stalls, and you go here, you go here, you go here, you go here.
mm-hmm.
And I feel like, we talked a little bit about this administration earlier. Every day is like, oh God, what's going to happen today? Um, and I just want to take away hope. And, it's been, we've conquered battles before. I don't like giving up, and I like hope. And I hope that's what other people take away.
Oh my gosh. Leanne, I'm so glad that you answered the call to action to join us today for this conversation. I appreciate you. You sharing space has been a complete gift of time. I appreciate it so much. You will be back because again, we are really on to something, and my brain is really creating right now as I engage this conversation with you and Odell. So I appreciate the time with us. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
All right.
You guys, let me take a breath because if Henry was sitting here, he'd be talking about breathe. Let me breathe in and out, in and out. Listen, being about the business of our community takes more than just saying, I'm getting up and I'm about to go do something good. Um, is it good what we're doing in and of itself? Absolutely, it is. Being in social services, being a part of the solution of healing and transformation within our communities is actually, you can't even put a dollar amount to what really happens on the ground. And both of the folks, Odell and Leanne, both do this work on the ground as well as lead these efforts in their own right. Some things that I am thinking about as I wrap up this segment is some words that are popping out. One word that continues to pop out as I was having these conversations and as I'm reflecting is intentionality. Everything that Odell and Leanne have talked about, have said, have shared their experiences, the work, the movement, it's it required them to be intentional. What does that mean? Some have heard me say this. How many times have someone done something to you, right? They harmed you, or let's do something that's much more realistic. You know what I don't like? When I'm in a grocery store and someone cart, it bumps up against my heel, right? I can't stand that. And Ryan just gave me a look. He's on backstage, but I saw his eyes. So his eyes look like that. I know y'all was like, yeah, I can't stand it either. And then the response is once you say ouch, then their response is, oh my bad, or I'm sorry that I didn't intend to hit you. I didn't intend. Oftentimes it's the unintentional harms that are created from the work that we say we're doing. Because what I didn't intend means and implies is that, well, you weren't being intentional, meaning, wow, if I were paying attention to the person in front of me and the distance with between them two. And mind you, I'm not talking about someone who may have some deficits in sight. I'm not talking about someone who may have some other deficit that has caused this potential situation. I'm talking about just someone who is just not paying attention. Intentional. We can't show up as co-conspirators if we aren't doing the intentional work. Just saying that I'm going to get up and I'm going to speak on a blowhorn, a bullhorn, and tell everybody that they need to listen to me. Just saying that I'm gonna sign my name on a on to contest a policy, just to say that I'm going to sign off on a letter to say I support, is not enough. Are you willing to stand up and walk away from a space that employed you? Are you willing to stand up and walk away from a space that honored you and your expertise because they want you to do something that's not in alignment with your integrity? Are you willing to speak up to someone in power with truth? Are you willing to sit in the uncomfortable feeling that can be temporary, as Leanne said? Temporary discomfort to honor the folks that we say we represent in this community. Are you willing to check your motives and remind yourself where you came from? Yes, put that question back up, Ryan. This is the question and the challenge to you, because you know we're going to come every time that we're here. There's a challenge. Soon as Ryan put it back up there. Thank you, Ryan. How are you willing to show up for the community? What are you willing to do? And if you notice, we are not like moving away from this topic. We keep unpacking and digging and unpacking and going to the next level. We are pulling back the layers of this onion, you all. As you can see, we keep diving deeper and deeper into the layers because the system changes when the people change. Gone are the days of complaining about what's not happening and moving to action and doing. We can't expect things to change if we don't be a part of the change. And we can't keep posting these quotes for trends and likes and the hope to go viral and not believe in what we're posting. So I'm excited, you all, because this conversation, it's the ingredients. It is part of the ingredients for the next episode, which is a live show. May 10th, 5 p.m. the doors open, 6 p.m. the show starts. And what that means, you all, is that we will have to, unfortunately, close those doors and lock them at 10 to 6. So if you are coming and you like me, who like to wait to the last minute to show up, we got to close the doors because we can't have any interruptions while the show is going. That is what my team is letting me know. So if you my family of late arrivers like me, we can't do it that day, y'all. Especially me. I'm there like just hours before. So I'm there before we even open the doors at 5:00. So this was this is, what can I say? What do people do? Because I don't cook. We season the food. This is it, season marinating. This is the marinating for the big meal next Saturday. All right. It's a wrap, you guys. Thank you for joining us today. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. It's getting deeper and deeper. I will see you all on the 10th. And for the virtual space, it will be a week after that. I'm out.